So I think this is helpful to any of you who want to apply to grad school in the future. Okay, for a PhD. Okay. Heather, go ahead and read your essay. Read your SOP for me. Okay, take turns. Curiosity.
My curiosity about diversity and multiculturalism was sparked when Jasmine Lee, a naturalized Korean citizen born in the Philippines, became the first immigrant member of the National Assembly, South Korea, in 2012. I had never thought of Korea becoming a multicultural nation until that time, as it was historically homogeneous culturally and ethnically. Even though there were a growing number of migrant workers, I always considered them as just foreigners who would work temporarily and who would never become part of Korean society. Lee's election as a proportional representative of the ruling Saenuri Party has been controversial, and many internet netizens have expressed bitter comments online and denied that she is truly Korean.
Although public opinions has been sharply divided about ethnic minorities in entering the legislatures.
Ethnic minorities.
Minorities.
Okay.
Okay. It has been largely supportive of the entry of minorities, specifically mixed-race children into the Korean military. These two events inspired me to ask how South Koreans, historically known for their pure-blood nationalism, adapt to growing diversity since the early 1990s. South Korea has attracted steady influx of long-term foreigner residents, including labor and marriage migrants, who currently number nearly 2 million. The government and the mainstream media embarrasses Korea as a multicultural society. However, migrants and their children face numerous social challenges such as discriminations and economic inequality.
To learn more about social change and diversity in Korea and in other countries, I studied the social science at Hanyang University, Seoul, including classes on international organizations and civil society by Professor Joseph Yi. Particularly interesting were theories about social capital, Robert Putnam, Francis Squareman, and social contact, Gordon R. Pott. Groups that lack sustained communication are less likely to understand and tolerate each other. As a result, more interactions are needed to build relations of trust or bridging social capital among members of different groups.
I volunteered to work as research assistant for Professor Yi to do first-hand research about ethnic, sexual, and other forms of the diversity in South Korea. I participated in 2 major research projects. First, we analyzed public discourse regarding ethnic diversity and government multicultural policies, including content analysis of 15 social media sites. Professor Yi and I were the first scholars to interview the leader and members of I Love Korea, the leading nativist coalition opposed to multicultural policies. I also interviewed key proponents of government multicultural policies, including Assembly member Jasmine Lee. Our findings generally support contact theory. Korean citizens with sustained personal contact with minority express more nuanced, positive views of the ethnic relations, whereas isolated citizens share more negative, stereotypical views.
Okay. Let's go to the next part. studied another significant, heretofore invisible minority, the LGBT. For over 6 months, I attended the weekly services of a church that was open to ethnic and sexual minorities. With open door congregants, we sponsored a booth and participated in the 2014 Queer Festival. Okay? Anyway, blah, blah, blah. And then so the bottom line is that, I did 2 research projects, right? The first research project resulted in an article which was conditionally accepted by a leading journal. And then my second project is currently under advanced review. Okay? So you want to show that I participated in these research projects and it had these results. Caragua. Okay? And then Professor E and I, we also presented our 2 projects at the 2014 Board Conference for Public Administration. Okay. And then blah, blah, blah. I also worked as an English reporter. And then for the next research project, Professor E has invited me to officially co-author. Oh my God! Okay. In recognition, so happy. In recognition of my growing research contribution. Okay. Tending to be a student. Okay. And we also started globalization research and exciting new frontier, North Korea. Okay. And then you talk about how North Korea is changing. You saw the guest speaker, right? How the vast majority of NGOs in North Korea are evangelical Christian. And in October 2014, we interviewed evangelical workers from Love North Korea and Post. Okay, and preliminary findings show that sustained contact nurtures familiarity and trust. Okay, between North Korean citizens, officials, and foreigners. We plan to do more interviews, and if we get money, we can actually go and visit there. Okay. Research and publishing have whetted my appetite. Okay. Whetted to further develop my research skills. Although I officially graduated in 2015, I shall continue to volunteer as research assistant and to audit social science methods classes. I am particularly interested in doing quantitative methods and computer analysis. Have you talked to any of the teachers for auditing? Have you talked to any teachers about auditing? Okay, talk to them before we send this, because we cannot lie in our SOP. Okay, so just talk to a couple of professors and ask, do you have classes that I can audit? Okay, at least you can audit my class. My career goals are to teach sociology and conduct research on diversity and cooperation. The sociology program at Rice offers the highest caliber training. It is also in the large diversity of Houston. I am interested in working with the many exciting scholars at Rice. Probably don't need many and exciting. Including Drs. Michael Emerson and Elaine Howard Eklund, who studies the Google study. Okay. For instance, okay. Both study intersections of religion, ethnicity, immigration, and culture, Korean evangelicals. Professor E has highly recommended the sociology program at Rice University, and especially Professors Emerson and Eklund, with blah, blah, blah. Okay? So it's my first choice for graduate study. Okay? And then she modified this for other universities that, I love UC Riverside, or I love Albany. Okay? Alright. So you have to show the love. Okay? Okay, do you see? So it's a nice, short, simple essay. Okay? A statement of purpose. And then, also you need good English. Okay? So if anybody asks, you revise this a lot. Okay? You got a lot of feedback from professors. Okay? So this is a, I think this is a good sample for writing an SOP. Sounds good? Okay. Now, she also did a writing sample, which is going to take some time. So let's first go over your papers. Okay? Let's go over Youngie's paper. Did everybody get a copy of Youngie's paper? Okay. If you send it to me early, I can also check your grammar. Okay? Okay, let's go over this one by one. I'll read the first paragraph. Complex understanding of the comfort woman. The comfort women were the tens of thousands of women, many of them Korean. Since this is plural, many of them Koreans. Okay, go ahead and change it right now. Many of them Koreans who were pressed into sexual servitude by the Japanese military during World War II and the preceding conflicts in Asia. This is your words or you copied? If you copy, put it in quotation mark. And try not to copy, especially the first paragraph. Okay? How can you say this in your own words? I know, but the last part is your word? Okay. So I want to try, like, you're taking this class, you can also improve your English. So try to do at least like 80-90% your own words. Okay? And then if you do if you do copy, put everything in quotation marks. Okay. So only the last paragraph is your own words? Yes. Okay. Let's go ahead and okay, well anyway, let's just read it. Can you go ahead and read the second paragraph?
Koreans generally believe that Imperial Japan's leadership ordered, planned, and executed the gunpoint kidnapping of the thousands of Korean females, and some really shipped them like chattel to frontline brothers. Brothers.
You know what chattel is? Chattel is like cattle.
Mhm.
Okay. But so there's no N. Okay, get rid of N. But so 2008 suggests. Okay. Because that's your main subject. Go on.
A more complex understanding of this comfort woman, their experiences was far from uniform. So said the post-colonial Korean public discourse of the comfort woman exclude the personal experiences of sexual violence suffered by other individual victims.
Okay, stop. What does that mean? The last sentence. The post-colonial Korean public discourse excludes the personal experiences of sexual violence suffered by other victims. That means what? How can you say that in your own words? Miss Kim? I mean, Youngie Kim. Okay. Because you're the author. Okay. That's one argument. The other argument is that post-colonial discourse on suffering by women only focuses on the suffering of women because of Japanese. They don't discuss the suffering of women because of other factors. So I know. That's what I'm explaining because it's in English, and then like I told you, like my other students told me how like too much English gives them too much headache. Okay. So I said, okay, let's try to learn more Korean then. So right now we're teaching Korean words to the international students because we said like too much English gives your partners headache. Okay. So suffer by other victims means that for example, let me go one step. Sarah So, she's kind of like me. She's like Korean. She was born in Korea, loved Korea, but she's also an anthropologist. She's a social scientist, so she believes in the truth. And two is that she teaches at San Francisco State, very liberal place. So she's very like feminist. Okay, she's like 여성운동. Okay, but she wants to fight for the rights of all women. Okay, she wants to recognize the suffering of all women, including all Korean women. But she says this post-colonial discourse, post-colonial means after 1945, okay? That Koreans are so focused on Koreans are victims, Japanese are oppressors. They don't look at other cases where, other cases are what? Other cases are a woman might be victimized by who? By what? Yeah, men in general, Japanese or Korean men. Okay? Okay, now, so the main claim from Sarah So is that research on comfort women tends to be highly sensationalized, politicized, and selective. You know what selective means? Selective, right? That you just choose one part of reality instead of the many parts. One key question is, social science, we want to explain why, right? So, W-H-Y. Okay, when? Okay. So, one outcome we want to explain is, it is a fact that you had Korean comfort women in the Japanese army. But the question is, how did they get there? Okay. So, post-colonial discourse emphasizes that it was Japanese soldiers who kidnapped Korean girls. Okay. Do you guys ever watch that Korean drama, Kakshita? You know what that is? Yes. Okay. Anyway, so it's like a comic book and historical drama. Okay, and there's an episode where these Japanese soldiers, they're kidnapping the Korean woman. Okay. So this is a claim. Actually, there is no evidence that this actually happened. Okay. The only evidence that there was one person who did claim that I kidnapped them, but later he was lying. But we do have evidence on 2, 3, and 4, which is that you have many brokers. You know what brokers are, right? Korean or Japanese, especially like those Korean ajumma, they fool the girls, they lie to the girls. They say, come here, I'll get you a nice job at a factory, a company, or maybe at the cafeteria, army cafeteria. But it wasn't that case, okay? The third case was when patriarchal, sexist families sell or drive away daughters, okay? Because in the old days, daughters had high value or low value. It was very what? Low value, right? And so they could make money, then they just sold them. The final example is that this is something that Sarah stresses, which is that many women left home on their own. They wanted to get away because this was a time of modernity, capitalism, and they were. So this was like the early 20th century, right? And then women realized that I can be free. I can get more education. I can be a modern woman. Okay? And so many women left the house because they left the house, they thought home was too oppressive, bullying fathers, bullying brothers. And so they left their home, they went out to look for jobs. And sometimes either they were fooled or they chose voluntarily to do sex work. Okay? And we don't know how many, percentage. How many of them was personal choice? How many of them were fooled, okay, by brokers? So this is question number 1. Second question is, again, there's a fact, which is that many Korean women they sue the Japanese government, okay? They want apology and reparations, money from the Japanese government. And again, the question is why? Theory number 1 is that, because they're genuine sexual slaves, survivors of sexual slavery. So this is a dominant discourse in Korea. But then in Japan, many people think that maybe it's X2, the Korean woman is lying. She did not really serve. And actually, if you read the comfort women later chapters, many comfort women make the claim about other comfort women. They say, I was a comfort woman, but they're just lying. They just want money. Because if you claim to be a comfort woman, you can get money from the Korean government. Okay? Theory number 3 is that it's a gray area. That yes, I did serve as a comfort woman, but not because I was kidnapped, but because of maybe family pressure, or maybe it was my personal choice. But I feel a lot of pressure from the Korean government and society to say that Japan coerced me, kidnapped me, enslaved me. Okay? So you have different theories, and it's our job as social scientists to find out, what is the truth, okay? Or what percentage was this, and that, okay? Anyway, claims that anti-Japanese nationalism undermines universal justice and search for the whole truth. Okay, by universal justice, okay, so for example, like we talked about this article before, right? So you had when we talk about comfort women, what's the Korean term for comfort women? It's called 위안부. Albert, practice with me. Everybody, 1, 2, 3. 위안부. Yes, we need to know more Korean, so they get less headache. Okay. There's actually another term called 미군 위안부. And who are the 미군 위안부? Those were the comfort women who served who? Right, U.S. Army, 미군. Okay. And last month, I think a month or two ago, they actually sued the Korean government because they say it was a Korean government who organized this, but they ignore us because they only focus on the Japanese army. Okay, so they sued, and then I noticed that this was in all the Western newspapers, okay, including Reuters. It's a big wire, but when I searched 조선일보, I type in keyword like American Army prostitutes. The only result I get is Japan. They don't talk about any of the 미군 위안부. Okay, so if you type in American Army prostitutes, you only get Osaka Mayor, Japanese textbook. Okay, nothing on the 미군 위안부. Okay, so it's basically ignored in the mainstream media. So it's so the idea is that instead of the whole true universal justice, you only get nationalist justice. Okay? And then another claim is that this is another chapter, but there's a strong social incentive to claim that one is a victim. In the old days, being a victim was considered a bad thing. Okay? But today, if you're a victim, if you can claim to be a victim, you get a lot of status and recognition from the media, especially Western media. Okay, for example, in Cambodia, there's a lot of sexual trafficking. Okay, and then there was a woman called Somali Mom. She claimed that I was a victim of sexual trafficking, and so she got a lot of attention. She was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, New York Times, PBS. They all wrote about her, discussed her. Okay, and then later they found out that her story was not true. Okay, a story that is true is have you heard of Malina? She won the Nobel Prize for Peace this year. Yeah, girl from Pakistan, right? She's only 14. Okay, but and she got the award because she fought for women's rights. But many people fight for women's rights, right? Why did she get the Nobel Prize? Well, what happened to her? She was shot by the Taliban. She was shot by the Taliban, so it got global, especially Western media publicity, okay? And so because of all that Western publicity, she became this Western hero, and then she won the Nobel Prize, okay? So the point is that if you're a victim, people give you a lot of sympathy. They give you a lot of recognition, okay? All right. The final point is that this is from the Asahi Shimbun, which is kind of a liberal newspaper. And the Asahi Shimbun argues that this kind of nationalist crusade, it undermines political compromise and cooperation. Okay? And so this is from us. So they say that in Japan, books denouncing South Korea have come into vogue, while at the same time, South Korean organizations are working to build comfort women statues in and outside of the country. We are concerned that as a result of such futile provocations from both sides, the most important issue, relief for victims, will be ignored. Okay? So, Asahi Shimbun is arguing that instead of focusing on justice for all women, including comfort women, we're more, Koreans are more focused on criticizing Japan. Japan's more focused on criticizing Korea. And so this is like a futile provocation. Do you know what a provocation means? What does it mean to provoke? Hanging is kind of like bite. Okay, it's like 이렇게 poking 하는 거. Okay, what does futile mean? Futile means works or not works. No, not works. So it's a futile provocation. So it's like, so if you put like comfort woman statues in front of the Japanese embassy, it's a big thing or a small thing? It's kind of a big thing, right? It makes people very angry. But is that going to change Japanese government policy? No. It's going to make them maybe more resistant. Okay? According to that side, this is their claim. I'm not saying you have to agree, but you just have to address it. Okay? And then one of my Hanyang students, he actually made an analogy between the comfort woman statue and, because that's all done by NGOs, right? Comfort woman statue and throwing balloons to North Korea. Okay? They're both provocative and they both might be futile. They might just make both governments just angry instead of responding in a positive way. And so instead of doing comfort woman statues, what are alternatives to change government policy? Okay? So anyway, so keep those things in mind while we discuss all your papers. Okay. Okay, now let's go back to our handsome circle. Alright. Okay, you have the mic. Okay. Okay, who's next? Okay, Albert.
Hi.
It's not Sam Mukti. It's another handsome African man. Okay.
I'm sorry, just this paper is not.
No. Third paragraph.
Great.
So, I will just give us just a small introduction
Okay.
to the background. Because she was wondering what Sarah so saying.
Okay. So explain the
So shows fourth paragraph.
fourth.
Actually, fourth paragraph. You can skip that.
Okay.
Shows
Okay. So shows that the comfort woman system partook not just the authoritarian politics of Japanese colonialism, but was also deeply rooted in Korean patriarchy whose effect continued on after 1945. I agree with so that the forces of Japanese colonialism and Korean patriarchy together shaped the fate of Korean comfort women.
Right. So, do you understand what Sarah so means by Korean patriarchy? What's Korean patriarchy? What does patriarchy mean?
Mean that
Who's the boss? Right, father's the
Father.
boss. Okay. Just like Tebu, right? Alright. That's matriarchy. That's my family. Okay. I just asked mommy for permission to do that. Don't ask me everything. Okay. Okay. Can you keep on reading?
So said Korea's outcry over the use of comfort woman is a nationalistic uproar. I think the reason of Korea's outcry is because of wrong process of solving the comfort woman issue after Japanese colonial time.
The comfort woman issue didn't be discussed at the 1965 treaty between Korea and Japan because of the security and economic problem, and didn't be solved properly at 1990s. When this issue was revealing the war first time in there, Korean government failed to make an agreement with the survivors' activities and Korean people from the first time. At some point, Japan apologized and tried to solve this issue, but Korean government welcomed at first time about this. But when the survivor activities opposed to Japan's apology, they changed their position and said for Japan to take over the legal responsibility, but which was not discussed at 1965 treaty. That's why the comfort woman issue remained as one of the main serious conflict between Korea and Japan, which makes the relationship worse.
Yeah, it's complicated, but did we talk about the 1965 treaty before? Okay. There's an interesting history. In the 1965 treaty, the Japanese government at first suggested we pay the individuals who suffered, all the workers, not just sex workers, okay, but all the workers. But the president said no, just give us the money, and and instead of using the money to compensate individuals, what did the Korean government use that money for? Such as what? But they also use the money directly for a big project to build a big what? Yeah, they built the 고속도로. They built the Busan-Seoul highway. Do you see? So anyway, so that money could have went to the comfort woman directly, but instead, like Park Chung-hee used that money to build a highway because he said that we need to help the nation first, not the survivors first. Anyway, that's number one. Number two is that I think we talked about 1993, 1995. There was an Asian Defense Fund, Asian Women's Fund. It was from Maruyama, who was the most liberal Japanese prime minister. And then, it's almost like Sewar. You had activists who said we want more, and so because of the activists, they couldn't compromise, and so we have these problems. In my other class, we talked about similar situation with Israel and Palestine. In 2000, you had a very liberal prime minister, Ehud Barak, and he gave a very generous peace treaty, which gave Palestinians about 80% what they wanted. But Yasser Arafat said, no, we want more. And so it broke down, and then it's been downhill ever since. Because it's politically impossible for any Israeli leader to give more than 80%. Okay? Same thing with Japan. The prime minister wanted to give a public-private fund. The Japanese government basically asked Japanese citizens to donate money for the comfort women. Okay? And they donated a lot of money. But the activists, they wanted all the money to come directly from the government. Yes, what's another thing?
The reason of this conflict happened because the activists and the survivors want Japan to take legal responsibility, but Japan denied because it was all solved in 1965 treaty. But at that treaty, the comfort woman wasn't mentioned at that time at all. So the Korean government said it didn't solve yet, but Japan government it was solved. And we admit, we apologize, but we can take responsibilities, but we can help, we can give money to survivors, but that doesn't mean we have still legal responsibility. That's the point, is there are still conflict in Korea and in Japan.
But the Japanese government is saying that we signed the treaty, and in the treaty the Korean government said this resolves all legal issues.
In the treaty, there is one 항목. Japan will pay the money for the workers who were forced to work, but didn't mention comfort woman. Korean government and Japan government didn't mention about comfort woman, but Japan's worker, I didn't remember, but all kinds of workers they mentioned, but except for comfort woman. But and I think Sarah and Saul, I read very interesting, and I became to know many other facts which I didn't know before. And and I agree with her, and the Korean patriarchy and Japan's colonialism will affect the comfort woman. But after that, the wrong process of solving this issue made this issue worse. And now this is the most serious issue we didn't solve. And in Korean, are very angry when this issue come out every time, because this is really we cannot imagine, and very, very sad human right. So it's very difficult to solve this. But I agree with her mostly, but it doesn't, Korean government didn't mention purposely about nationalistic uproar. I don't think that this issue wasn't solved properly at treaty and after, and also 1990s. 1990s government, Korean Japan government tried to solve this issue hard. They apologize and make it fund, and Korean government first welcomed the fund and the apology, but activists, survivors, very were against with them. So I think the problem is Korean government didn't make one agreement with the people and the activists and survivors. That's the main wrong cause. I think we don't have solution for this. I think we should move on, and we should try to not. And some Korean company got the fund from Japan, and many, I think 80%, but Korean government also gave money to them, same amount, 3천만 원, to many comfort women.
Right, and you said we'll give them money, not accept money from the Japanese government.
Later, the Korean government changes their position. First welcome, but changed, but still Japanese government get money to them.
Do you think we should try to ask all the comfort women to get the 1995 money to accept the 1995 apology and money? Or do you understand?
No, one more.
그 1995에 그 사과하고 apology 있잖아. 사과하고 apology and reparation 있잖아. So we should accept that, or we should.
I think we should make an agreement, and government did wrong, so we should make 양보해야 돼 서로, and we should move on. We cannot solve this, and what we can do is we should 이거 다시 안 일어나게, 이런 역사. 그리고 and now in Japan, the Abe and the people, actually the people in Japan don't care about history, even their history and the past history, but the politicians they care because of their voting kind of political situation. And I think we cannot make the Japanese government change their position, and now we cannot make Japan government to take a legal responsibility now. So we should move on. We should 일본하고 잘 지내고 앞으로 이런 역사 발생 안 하도록 해야지. 그냥 나가야 된다고 생각해요.
You said most Japanese people don't care. I don't think most Korean people care.
Japanese only think of sake, and after work they all think of sake and small thing. Really, they are not Korean. They don't know history well. And I have many Japanese friends. I never talk with them, Takashima or Kampomo. They didn't know where. They are very small people, I think. 진짜 그래요. Japan is different. Koreans know history very well. Even us, we know comfort woman and the colonials time, but they didn't know. Even they didn't know the 일본의 평화헌법 있잖아요. They didn't know that. My friends, Japanese friend, didn't know. Doesn't know. 평화헌법. 일본이 군사력 못 가지게 하는 거. 자위대. They don't care. Oh, no. Professor Kim Kyung-min said same thing with me, really.
Like a lot of this person like this. I think majority of people are friendly to Japan. Most Japanese are friendly to Koreans, but it's a small number of activists. It really reminds me of the Seoul, how a small group of activists drives government policy.
전 나중에는 한국 사람들하고 일본하고 더 친하게 지내서 그렇게 자연스럽게 이렇게 정말 친하게 지내고 좋아하는 나쁘게 못할 거라고 생각해요. 이게 법적인 정책이나 이런 거 물론 이렇게 자기가 자기 자발적으로 간 것도 있을 거고 이렇게 돈 많이 준다고 하고 나 아까 맨날 그냥 딸도 막 500원 받고 팔고 그 책이 나왔잖아요. 근데 그러면은 나 같아도 여기 있는 분들 그렇게 받고 이렇게 예쁜 옷도 입고 그러면 그랬을 수도 있지만 근데 일본은 다른 나라도 여성들 이거 되게 낮았고 일본은 더 낮았고 남자들이 뭐 이런 거 정말 한국 여성들하고 지금 공부한다고 못해요. 사회치가 아닌데 근데 이런 일이 생긴 거는 일본이 우리나라 침략했고 우리는 침략당한 입장에서 어쩔 수 없이 이런 요소가 생긴 건데 말하면 잊어버렸다.
정말 이거 너무 시원하지?
잊어버렸어요.
괜찮아. 김밥 먹으면서 얘기할 수 있어. Anyway, let's go to Albert's paper.
아 그러니까 이런 거 있었던 거. 아 원민이 이런 일본군 위안부가 어떻게 모집됐던 간에 강제적인 시설에서 정말 비인간적으로 있었다는 사실은 부정할 수 없는 거고. Japan comfort woman. I don't care how they recruited, how they became comfort woman. I think the comfort woman is the fact, and it's really cruel fact, and think